Autopsy report. Contradiction. Is it the knife? Like, how would he hit him in the back? The contradiction, of course, lies here. Take a look at the knife the man's holding. Oh, it's the blunt knife. It's not the sharp knife. I thought it was just a bad drawing, to be honest. Like, I thought she just kind of drew it wrong. If you look closely, you can see its tip is broken. It's just a rectangle. Like, you can't see the face, you can't see the hands, but somehow this is a relevant detail, the fact that she didn't draw a sharp point. Even I don't have to look closely to see that, Mr. Wright. But Mr. Wright, look at the evidence. See the murder weapon, its tip is broken too. If I recall, the tip of the knife was found broken off in the victim's body. Yeah, it was the conclusive piece of evidence that proves Joe Dark was the murderer. I'm afraid it's not so simple, Emma. And where, pray tell, could you possibly see a problem? It's obvious, really. The victim suffered a single stab wound to the back, so he would have stabbed. He wouldn't have pulled it out again, so it would be one swing, and they left it in there. If the victim was only stabbed once, then the murder weapon should not yet be broken. Ah! What's the meaning of this? Perhaps the knife was broken beforehand. No, the tip was inside the body. Sorry, but I'm afraid that's not possible. The tip of the knife was found inside the victim's body. If it was broken beforehand, it couldn't possibly wind up there. That's right. But what does this mean? The tip of the knife was undeniably discovered within the victim's body. The only possible explanation is the witness's memory is mistaken. That's why I asked her so many times if she was sure she remembered correctly. I believe you were annoyed at the time, but she was sure she remembered correctly. But there's no other way to explain this inconsistency. Not so fast, Mr. Edgeworth. There is another explanation. Dark didn't kill Marshall. Have you forgotten already? I brought a little something called falsified evidence. You're treading on thin ice, right? All I'm saying is that this broken knife tip might be the piece of evidence that was forged. You can't deny the possibility. No! Ah! Order! Are you saying the investigation really was corrupted? Your Honor, please allow me to once again go over the events that took place on the day of the murder. We are rehashing a different trial, a different murder. The police department and the prosecutor's office were holding a ceremony that day. After receiving the King of Prosecutors award at the ceremony, Neil Marshall requested Joe Dark along with Damon Gantz. Wait. During this questioning, Joe Dark fled the room. Prosecutor Marshall chased after him and was killed by Dark. It is my belief that somewhere in this story, there is a lie. I'm not lying. The man really was holding up a broken knife. If that's true, then there's no other way around it. This could not have been the actual murder weapon. There must have been another broken knife. What are the chances of there being two broken knives? Another broken knife besides Joe Dark's. Could there have been one? There's another one! If the witness is this adamant about the accuracy of what she saw, it can't possibly be explained away by a simple observational error. Mr. Wright, in that instance, Emma really did see a broken knife. I assume then that you have some information about this other broken knife. If so, please feel free to enlighten us. The murder weapon was already broken prior to the murder. There's only one way. Take a look at this! Here's the real murder weapon. Okay, look. Does the game want me to present the photo? Or the trophy? The photo, right? I don't know. I don't know what the game wants me to present. Do they want the photo or the trophy? The photo. The answer lies in the past, 2 years in the past. Right here inside this picture. Okay, photo. This is a picture of the award ceremony. Ah! What is it, Mr. Edgeworth? It's the broken murder weapon. Notice the award prosecutor Marshall is holding. That's a broken knife. As we earlier concluded, the knife in the drawing was not Joe Dark's knife. That being the case, the knife the witness saw was in all likelihood from this award. Order! Neil Marshall was awarded King of Prosecutors that day. As an award, he was given this broken shield and knife. When he chased after Joe Dark, he pulled out this knife. That seems... I'm not sure that's a good idea. What are you gonna do, stab him? You're not supposed to stab the suspect, you're supposed to, like, apprehend him. Being a prosecutor, he did not carry a pistol. This broken knife was the only weapon he had in this dangerous situation. But that can't be! Oh, and why not, Mr. Edgeworth? Because if the King of Prosecutors award knife was the murder weapon, then the murderer and the victim would be reversed. What do you mean? I mean... this man raising a knife would have been Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Oh, it could have been. Oh! It could have been. But the prosecutor was the one who actually died. That's true. What's going on here? It seems Mr. Wright has been a bit too eager to jump to conclusions. Hold it! Wait, I remember now. I remember everything. Why would you remember now but not before? Witness! Mr. Edgeworth! What is it? Could you show me your evidence list again, please? The list that the game never allowed us to look at fully. We still haven't seen the whole list. You know, it would be like useful to see which piece of evidence was presented in that case and which pieces were concealed. Why did the game never show us his list? The one with that picture scribbled on the back. I knew it! This picture. I'm the one who drew it. See, I told you she's the one who drew it and it's probably the pot. Except the game, like, thinks you're dumb and doesn't let you do anything about it. What? You drew that? That's right. The list wasn't torn in half at the time I drew this picture. All this time I've been trying so hard to forget. I must have locked this part away deep inside me. Perhaps it would be best if we added this to the witness's testimony. Would you please tell us what you've recalled, Miss Guy? Yes, Your Honor. First the knife mix-up, and now the blue badger! This should be interesting. The murderer is the blue badger! Alright, Emma's recollection. When I saw that man raise his knife, I panicked and rushed towards both of them. I think I knocked away the man with the knife. You forgot that? Just then there was another flash of lightning, and that's when I saw the blue badger! He wasn't in the room, but I am sure I saw his shadow. You saw the blue badger. Okay. Try impossible. The chief of detectives hadn't even designed him until this year. Designed him. That would mean he didn't even exist 2 years ago. Yes, well, the defense may now begin its cross-examination. Stop! Please, don't pursue this any further. Lana, what is the meaning of this? Please remain seated in the defendant's chair. But you can't do this. I've already confessed the crime. Yeah, you're not important. Get out of the way. Why can't you just leave it at that? Chief Prosecutor Sky. We've already come this far. It's too late to turn back. Silence! The defense will now begin its cross-examination. Bailiff, please detain the defendant. It seems we are finally getting to the core of the matter. Emma's reconnection. When I saw that man raise his knife. When you say that man, I assume you refer to Joe Dark? Yes, at least I think it was him. You think? All I could really see were shadows. The power outage that immediately preceded the incident is also documented in the prosecutor's office reports. So then you... I panicked and I rushed towards both of them. Why would you do something so dangerous? What else could I have done? Run away from them? He was about to stab Mr. Marshall. She seems convinced that Dark was the one holding the knife. But as we've just theorized, Mr. Marshall was the one holding the knife. Well, I didn't know that at the time. When that Dark guy knocked me down, all I could think was, I've got to help that other person. I think I knocked away the man with the knife. What do you mean, you think? It all happened so fast, and I was in shock. I don't remember everything clearly. What I did, it's all kind of a blur. Miss Sky was almost killed before she was witness to a murder about to take place. With so much happening in a matter of seconds, a little disorientation is only natural. I saw the man about to stab the other person who I thought was Mr. Marshall. I knew I had to stop the man with the knife. What you did was very brave, young girl. So then what happened? Just then, there was another flash of lightning, and that's when I saw the Blue Badger! Are you sure about this? Of course, see? I even drew a picture of him here. But it was the chief of detectives who thought of this hideous beast. I mean, this is so funny. You'll notice that one of its eye, it's got like a little dent here. It's like crying a little bit. It's so funny. And that was just this year. The Blue Badger didn't exist 2 years ago. This is all quite verifiable. I know it sounds strange, I was surprised too when I saw him at the police department. I had this nagging feeling that I'd seen him before somewhere. Now I finally remember. Oh brother, just when you thought that thing had caused enough commotion. Tell us, where in the room did you see him dancing? He wasn't in the room, but I'm sure I saw his shadow. His shadow? You mean you didn't actually see his face with its winning smile and all? That's right, but I still remember it. He had 3 creepy horns. This is pointless. That thing couldn't have possibly existed 2 years ago. The witness must be mistaken. That may well be. But what's important is what caused her to think she saw what she did. Oh, and I suppose you have an explanation. If so, then by all means tell us what this shadow really was. What was it Emma saw when the lightning flashed? Who is this Blue Badger really? I don't trust the game, I'm gonna save. I just might know. The Blue Badger hadn't even been dreamed up when Emma drew this picture. Yet she's certain she saw its shadow. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the defense's belief that on that fateful day 2 years ago, there indeed was something that looked similar to the Blue Badger. Something that is now sitting in this very room! Mr. Wright! In this room? Very well, Mr. Wright. What is it that the witness saw in that instant? Please show us this mysterious badger, Blue Badger lookalike. I think it's the unstable jar. The mysterious Blue Badger was in fact this! But that's... what exactly is that? I believe it's some sort of jar. But Mr. Wright, that doesn't look anything like the Blue Badger. Indeed it doesn't. As it stands now, it's just a plain jar. However, what if we were to change our viewpoint? Our viewpoint? I've got to show them the correct angle to look at this from. It's... it's that? Is it that? Is it that? This isn't right. I have to make him look more like the Blue Badger. Allow me to remind the defense its case hinges on the witness's drawing. If Mr. Wright can't match the shape to the witness drew, we cannot accept this claim. I've got to find just the right angle. Maybe I should rotate it vertically a bit more, or horizontally. I do. But it doesn't actually look like that. No. I still haven't figured it out, by the way. I still don't know how I can make this look like the Blue Badger. Is it... do I have to do it this way? Oh, that. Okay, that. Wow! Is this a miracle or what? It's just so stupid. No one can possibly deny this jar's resemblance to the Blue Badger! No. It can't be! Order! The defense has proven its claim. The mysterious Blue Badger witnessed on the day of the crime was actually this! Although we all enjoyed Mr. Wright's dramatic performance, one question remains. What's your point? What do you mean? So that badger thing was actually just a jar. That doesn't change anything. I'm afraid that that's where you're wrong, Mr. Edgeworth. You see, this changes everything. Indeed? Very well then. Please tell us. What difference now that we know the witness saw this jar? The location... okay, what's different now that we... hold on, so what he's talking about. What's different now that we know the witness saw this jar? The murder weapon. The murderer? The location, the murder weapon, the murderer. The murder weapon? Allow me to take these in turn. Oh, real? At the moment of the murder, the witness saw this jar. At a very specific angle, I might add, Mr. Wright. Yes, well, knowing this, where could she have seen this jar? Where? The location of the jar is shown in a picture taken on the day of the crime. It's on a shelf in the office of Damon Gantz. But the body was found lying near Lana Sky's desk. The witness testified so herself. Yes, and it is these two facts that reveal what actually transpired. You see, the struggle between Dark and Marshall did not take place in Lana Sky's office. It happened on the other side of the room, in Chief Gantz's office. Are you implying the murderer moved the victim's body from Damon Gantz's office to Lana Sky's office? Yes. Why would he do that? There's no reason. Exactly. If there wasn't a reason, he wouldn't have gone through the trouble. The only logical conclusion is that there was a reason. Do you know what that reason was, Mr. Wright? I finally figured it out. So this is why Lana tried to stop the trial. It's too late to quit now, though. Please recall the witness's testimony. She said she knocked away the man who was holding up the knife. In the next instant, the jar was hit and flew through the air. Now tell me, what could have sent the jar flying? That would have to have been the impact the man made when he was knocked into the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may draw your attention to this picture once more. If the man was knocked in the direction of the shelf the jar was sitting on, what would he have hit? Ah! The suit of armor, holding a very sharp and dangerous looking sword. Yes. And since the man who was knocked into the armor was carrying a broken knife, he would have had to have been Neil Marshall, wielding the King of Prosecutors trophy. No, Mr. Wright, you can't be thinking. Yes, there is another possibility of what actually transpired in that room. Another possibility? Of course, the perpetrator would have had no idea, but nevertheless. I don't know if I can go through with this. Mr. Wright, what's the matter? If events took place as the defense theorizes, then the outcome is obvious. In that moment, assuming the man Emma Sky knocked away was actually Prosecutor Neil Marshall. You mean Mr. Marshall died because of me? No! Thud. I never imagined her testimony would lead to this. So it was the witness who took the victim's life, and then proved so with her own testimony. This is unprecedented! What are you saying? I'm sorry, Miss Sky, but given the circumstances, Joe Dark murdered Prosecutor Marshall. How can you think it was Emma? How dare you try to pin the crime on her? Imagine that coming from you. If you recall, it was you who admitted to forging evidence 2 years ago. The reason you moved Prosecutor Marshall's body was to keep anyone from finding out about what Emma did, wasn't it? I assure you, Mr. Edgeworth, I have no idea what you're talking about. If you hope to have anyone believe your insane allegations, I'm afraid you're gonna have to have proof. Tell me, do you have any conclusive evidence that proves my sister killed Neil Marshall? Evidence? I'm willing to bet you don't. Yes, it certainly would be difficult to prove this with evidence. If we don't have evidence, then we'll have to rely on testimony. I'm afraid that won't work in this case. Both parties involved in the incident are dead. We certainly can't get dead people to testify. This has all been a wild goose chase from the beginning. Touché, Miss Sky. Of course. That only leaves us with one possibility. You mean there's still another possibility? What do you mean, Mr. Edgeworth? I mean the possibility that the victim has left us a message. For better or for worse, Mr. Marshall did not die instantly. He may have left behind the name of the person who took his life. In one manner or another. That's impossible. Well, Mr. Wright, this is the only possibility left to you. A message from the deceased. Does such a message exist? That's, you're just jumping to this. Where did this come from? Where did this come from? Why does... Did he write Emma on the jar? Oh wait. Is that Emma written there? Can I use the Can I use the spray on this? I need to use the spray on this. The dark red stains must be blood traces from the incident 2 years ago. Only the fragment still in Chief Gant's office still has lines remaining on it. Oh, you can see it. It's EMA. Yeah. Crazy. Does such a message exist? I've got to think back to the court record. The real murderer's name that the victim may have left is in the evidence. This message from the deceased is already in our possession. Mr. Wright, will you stop at nothing to prove my sister a murderer? Do not be mistaken, Miss Guy. Our purpose is not to accuse Emma of any crime. There is only one thing we seek. The truth. No matter how painful it may be. Well, now then, Mr. Wright. Please show us the piece of evidence that conveys a message from the deceased. Can we spray this? This is the message left by the deceased. This is that blue badger from before, right? Oh, is he going to just speak the killer's name? If that thing could, I'm sure it would. Looks like everyone's forgotten this is just a jar. A message was left here, on the surface of this jar. What do you mean? If you look closely, you can see a faint trail of blood on this jar. It looks like someone wiped the blood away. Yes, but notice, for some reason the blood on some of the fragments was not wiped away. Yes, there is a line here, drawn in blood. So what you're saying is that these dots were once lines. Prosecutor Marshall did not die instantly. He used the few precious moments left to him to leave behind a message. One that someone apparently wiped away, but blood must have seeped into the jar where the lines changed directions. Precisely so. All we need to do is connect these points, and the victim's message will become apparent. No! Mr. Wright, what kind of message did the victim leave for us? Your Honor, I believe these red stains will reveal to us the answer. I've got to connect these dots to make the letters. Why don't we use the spray? There's only one thing the victim would have written given the circumstances. His murderer's name! Oh, I do that. Hold on, before I do this, is there any way I can write this and not have Emma? I mean, you can see the Emma there. Can I write, what's his name? Dark? D-A-R-K-E. Nope, it's only Emma. Present. It's a defense attorney's duty to prove their client's innocence. That's why all I've been thinking about is saving Lana. After all my efforts, I never thought it would turn out like this. Emma, so this is the final message Prosecutor Marshall left behind. Of all people, she may not have meant it, but in the end, the one who took the victim's life was Emma Skye. See, Worthy can't say I didn't warn you. Yeah, you falsified evidence. Chief Gantz, do you understand the implications of what you've done? What? What are you talking about? 2 years ago, Joe Dark was sentenced to death. He was convicted because of his final murder. I believe you were the prosecutor in that case, were you not? Ack. Yes, Worthy. Because of you, an innocent man was sentenced to death. Not only that, but you used forged evidence to ensure his conviction. Cack. But Joe Dark really was a serial murderer, that's undeniable. I'm afraid that's not important. Didn't you know we aren't defenders of justice? Nani? We are merely keepers of the law. Sentencing a man to death is no light matter, even if there wasn't any cover-up or evidence forgery. Ultimately, the responsibility falls on the prosecutor in charge. Despite what anyone may say, this fact cannot be denied. What's going on at the prosecutor's office? They might have sent an innocent man to his death. How can he just stand there like it wasn't his fault? Order! Order! The gavel's pounding fell on deaf ears. Unable to settle the crowd, the judge declared a recess. Where this trial is headed, no one knows. Alright, well. Good. I'm glad to learn that Emma's a murderer. I always knew it. I always knew she was no good. Alright, see you next time. Let me save this.